So I have a 5-year-old who's going to turn 6 in November, and I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old. So I have 3 kids, and we haven't homeschooled yet. We're about to start. My oldest went through kindergarten, and we saw some things that we didn't like. Before kindergarten, she was really into learning and was excited about math and all this stuff. And after kindergarten, she was scared of math. We went on a first grade trip, you know, a tour of the first grade, and she saw numbers and she like freaked out. She was like, "Oh, there's gonna be math here," you know. I was like, "Why are you scared of math? You know, you're just in kindergarten." And then we started. We've been talking about homeschooling, and then we started researching it more. We read some of John Holt's stuff and John Taylor Gatto's stuff, and we're like, wow. And meeting people, it's a movement it's growing. So there's a lot of pioneers in the past who paved the way, but there's a big movement now where there's all this network that they created, and it seems like, you know, we're still learning. We're like, you know, scared too, because you don't know what you're doing, and we're not homeschooled. We're part of the system, so you can't relate to it, you know. But it feels right. Something resonates with homeschooling with us and learning that seems true. And I feel like, you know, after school, after being schooled, that I had to relearn how to learn myself. And so I was like, wow, why did I have to wait this whole time to learn the stuff I really, really like?
I've been homeschooling since I was a little kid. I've never been to public school in my life. And when I first started, I was in a bus traveling around California, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, Oregon. And I was taught by my father, who had a bunch of books, and he's a hippie. He went to like a bunch of Renaissance fairs and all that sort of stuff. So I was pretty much learning English and math from him, and then just social skills, bartering skills, and all that sort of thing. And ever since that's ended in my life, I've been doing charter school, which has also taught me a lot of direction of where I want to go. And I'm starting to go to college full-time now in about a few weeks. And I think that homeschooling has taught me a lot of really important street skills.
I live in San Francisco, and my husband, Mike Boss, and I have 2 kids, Jesse, who's 13, and Isaac, who's 9. And from the time my daughter was really small, we knew we wanted to homeschool because we were not excited about the public school options that we were facing. But then after we started looking into homeschooling, we realized it was really a good fit for our family philosophically. And shortly after finding out about homeschooling, we discovered unschooling. And we're able to pretty quickly immerse ourselves in the philosophy of unschooling by doing a lot of reading online and talking with other people. And our kids have always unschooled, never been to school. They do some enrichment classes, that kind of thing, but they've never set foot in a real classroom or school.
We have not always homeschooled. I was a classroom teacher for a long time and an administrator in public and private school, and never thought I would homeschool in a million years, really. And then I had a child who just didn't fit well into the mainstream institution of education, Harry. So after a really, really bad 5th grade year, we pulled him out and started homeschooling, because in Sebastopol, homeschooling is a very normal and common option. And so it seemed like something we should try, and we've never looked back. It's changed our lives.
Our family is a little unique in that we started our homeschool adventure motivated by our desire to go into the mission field. Our family is all believers, and we went down to Mexico for 2 years and worked with an organization that helped build houses for the Mexican poor and introduced families that. And because of our back and forth across the border, homeschooling was a logical choice for that, as it is for many missionaries. After we returned from Mexico, we went back into Christian camping, which I've been working in for 16 years. Our children asked if they could continue to be homeschooled. They enjoyed it so much, the flexibility of it, being able to travel and still continue the education. And my wife discovered a really talent for homeschooling, even though prior to that, she had a really negative attitude just because of her experience of going through school and knowing that she never wanted to be a teacher. But it was a really pleasant surprise that the experience and the type of children we have, that they really enjoyed homeschooling.
Well, homeschooling really never entered my mind, and we pictured our son going through Waldorf school all the way through high school. And it didn't work out that way. There were reasons why we wanted to change to a different kind of educational format, and then that didn't work out for the first grade. He wasn't happy, I wasn't happy, and I was standing in front of the sink one night doing dishes, and it all of a sudden occurred to me that if we homeschooled, we could do anything we wanted whenever we wanted. We could go anywhere we wanted. He wouldn't be sitting around making construction paper pilgrim hats for Thanksgiving. We could go to Plymouth Rock. We could go anywhere. We could just, the world could be our classroom. It was as if there were explosions going on in my head. And in the morning, I rolled over and told my husband we were going to homeschool.
I started out from preschool to about the 7th grade in Baptist private schools. And it turns out that didn't work very well for me. So I went on to public schools over in Marin County, and that didn't work very well either. The kids, they weren't very fun to be around. Like, all these kids are just, they're very insecure with themselves. They're just, I don't think a lot of them enjoy being in school because they're forced to do so many different things. And my mom had the idea when I was 15, a sophomore, to join the homeschooling gig. And it turned out to be absolutely the best decision I've ever made in my life. It's just everything I was doing in my life that was wrong completely turned around. And now I'm in a better place than I would have been anyway if I had stuck with private schooling or public schooling.
The teacher said, we just don't know what to do with her next year. They'd already moved her up to a 2 grades higher classroom for language arts every day. And she was still having a lot of meltdowns and having a lot of trouble emotionally and just getting along with other kids. They were at a loss. They had tested her, they had done all kinds of things. They were great, they worked their hardest to try to accommodate her. And this wonderful teacher looked me in the eye and said, have you considered private school? So we did, and we couldn't possibly have afforded private school for all 3 kids. But as I was looking for private schools, I discovered homeschooling. And that was in March of Roxana's 2nd year of being in school. And lo and behold, I discovered that there was a homeschool conference happening in our area coming up in a couple of weeks. So just because I wanted to explore all possibilities, I went to this homeschooling conference. I went all by myself. I didn't know anybody. We weren't homeschoolers. And I heard about homeschooling, and I was completely blown away, totally hooked on the vision and the image of what life could be like if we weren't trying to deal with the schools.
I have 2 girls, a 10-and-a-half-year-old and a almost 6-year-old. And we've been homeschooling ever since my 10-year-old was old enough to go to school. And we did it as an experiment. My husband was really interested in homeschooling and I was not. And I thought, okay, we can do this since kindergarten is probably not a big deal. I was worried about ruining her life. So we did it, and I was amazed. I was amazed what she did on her own. And we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know anything about homeschooling. I didn't even know about curricula. I didn't know about the different approaches. And so we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it. And so we started unschooling just because we didn't know what we were doing and we didn't know how to do it. And we thought, okay, maybe if we do this, we'll figure out what we're going to do. And we found out that unschooling for us was perfect.
I have been unschooled my entire life. We lived in Madera in California for a couple years, and that's where I went to kindergarten. Then we moved to Sacramento, and the school system was just so overpopulated and out of control that there just wasn't any point in going, and that's why we started homeschooling. And we started with the textbooks and trying to get things going, but it didn't really work that way. So then we started unschooling. There's no structure.